hardly fine. So that's why I only kind of it is so only I think even my dad there's a lot and Ukrainian democratic freedom. So it wouldn't want to end like that. But either way,
he's so good at it too.
Even the international idea, I know a lot of Ukrainian, but
you were very diplomatic there. You were like international wide. Yeah, you were very diplomatic.
I know Ukrainian fighting that as well. I really think that but it's like and equivalent to Ukrainian. I mean, at the end of the day, is Ukrainian.
Very much something that ought to be prior to that message for the friends in here who made us as a kill. Nowadays, a lot of what we're doing actually sowing chaos. So the chaos in the way that a lot of America ain't in the news anymore because they don't know what's deal with this. And that's focus their on the to the main and south of the shots of the U.S. across the globe. And doing that allows their proxy of the reward area movement to gain traction. I wanted to check in, Greg. You're very much, finger on the pulse and whatnot. I know that there's news and happenings that you're going to definitely want to get in and sound off on. So what's on your mind here?
Well, on my mind, I would make it very simple. Everybody talking that do not understand Kremlin and the Tsarist regime. We're so hung up because Volva is talking about a plan, even if it is the third one we're talking about plan. That's right, everybody's doing and all that are being so that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. If they're moving in Kremlin, they're regarded and go beyond. There's going to be no negotiating. There's going to be no coming. There's only moving down a very unique path of getting deeper. And the more saber rattling happens from the west, and you have Lithuania talking to Kanaaldetails, and Lithuania talking Vj-Vreque, that he's been independent out of Odessa. And I really appreciate his ability to being very good, especially for the rest of the world to see, and his communication very concise. He's representing the European ambassador, European Council, these consuls. He's speaking English and saying the right thing. You prefer like doing prayer. Okay, just so you know, that's my point. That's the publication Ukraine needs that nobody else had.
Yeah, for saying that there are certainly we can trust there. We can most of the documents, all the documents, it's time. As soon as he starts, Zelensky, what kind of right? Everything is very good. I can extremely disorder. There is a lot of side that you but there are a lot of things. Okay, hang on, let me finish it. But I don't disagree with that at all. He set up a shit party and then he went into I know him well. The problem is some of the party falls outside of that problem. You have someone coming out with all these numbers and the regiment all and rolling in the artillery's there, and then 3 days later someone's changing it in our brigade. And I'm not worrying what Vj-Vreque does for
Welcome to PPR Globe. In recent days, Russia's financial resources used to pursue its invasion plans in Ukraine melting away. European and U.S. sanctions are important in seizing Russia's material resources. In fact, the income from confiscated Russian resources is reaching record level. While the war was going on, these financial resources obtained from Russia were transferred to the Czech Republic, the U.S., Ukraine, following efforts led by Germany, France, and the European Commission. Ukraine. This stunning decision will seriously shake the Kremlin, while Kiev's hopes for independence vital enough to green the flames. This surprise decision on Russian assets was first reported by the Czech Republic's permanent representation recently announced. The Council of the EU has decided to authorize taxable surplus profits from frozen Russian assets, approved the transfer of the proceeds to Ukraine. The European Commission said in a statement that the European Union will be able to divest from Russian assets in 2024. Ukraine, a 4-year economic assistance program for Ukraine. Facility, he emphasized. The Commission put this at around 2.3 billion euros. In the report published by the Czechs, 90% of the expected revenue will be allocated to Ukraine's defense to be used for military purposes to support Ukraine. A smaller share, 10%.
De Poolse premier waarschuwt voor Russische inmenging bij een brand in een winkelcentrum in Warschau.
support Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. Valdis Valdi, Vice President of the European Commission for an Economy that Works for People, Dombrovskis said that the Council of the European Union had approved the use of the Russian Central Bank's official decision to remove the obstacle to the use of extraordinary revenues in Russia welcomed it. So, when will the proceeds from Russian assets be spent on Ukraine? The European Commission has published the decision on Russia's assets in the EU's official journal. Will enter into force after its publication. In addition, the Commission announced that Russia will be excluded from the use of its frozen assets in the European Union. Announced that the first payment of excess profits will be made in July 2024. Resources from Russia's assets will be paid twice a year starting in July 2024. Will be made available to support Ukraine through payments. Following the announcement of such decisions on the use of frozen Russian assets, the issue Germany has also made a critical move. The German authorities are planning to take a future transfer of frozen Russian assets, mostly stranded in Europe, from the U.S. plan to use the proceeds to pay for $50 billion in aid to Ukraine. Is ready to support. The G7 is expected to discuss the issue this week, but a decision is not expected until mid-June. Will not be given. In this way, Ukraine's staunchest supporters will have a medium term that they are willing to provide financing and that they are willing to provide Moscow with the same amount of funding that has been given to Kiev among the G7 allies. It is emphasized that it sends a signal that support has not diminished. In fact, Germany was expected to take such a step about the frozen Russian assets, because if you remember the other day, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, in an unannounced arrived in Kiev on a visit. During his visit, Baerbock said that the Federal Republic of Germany, resolutely he emphasized that he stands by Ukraine's side. In his first comments after his arrival, the head of the German Foreign Ministry said Ukraine's expressed his confidence that Ukraine will win. He also announced that in June, the conference on Ukraine's restoration will be held in Berlin in June. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his telegram that Baerbock's all-out war noted that this was his 7th visit to Ukraine and thanked him for his support. Thanked Ukraine for its support. Germany's support, as well as the right to use frozen Russian assets on behalf of Ukraine. One of the countries that came to the forefront on the issue was the United States, in an important move that opened a new chapter in international economic diplomacy, authorizing the seizure and transfer of Russian state assets to help Ukraine to the U.S. government. This unprecedented step is both in the U.S.'s national interest and in international law standards. It will financially compensate Russia for the devastation caused by its invasion of Ukraine, to hold Ukrainians accountable. The cornerstone of this legislative effort is the Restoring Economic Prosperity and Opportunity for Ukrainians Reconstruction (REPO) Act. This law authorizes the President of the United States to authorize approximately authorizes the seizure of billions of dollars of Russian sovereign assets. These funds are intended to finance Ukraine's reconstruction and to help fund the will be directed to a special Ukraine support fund aimed at compensating for damage. Under the REPO Act, the U.S. Treasury Department has 90 days to identify Russian assets and report on them. Then the President can authorize their seizure and transfer. This approach is not only intended to support Ukraine, but also to support the military and emphasizing the role of economic measures alongside diplomatic strategies. It sets a precedent for geopolitical conflicts. The U.S. is not acting alone. It is working with its G7 partners and Europe to ensure a coordinated approach. It is working closely with the Union. The United States has frozen a relatively small portion of Russian assets, totaling $300 billion. While the act of appropriation by a leading global power can lead other countries to follow suit, could encourage them to take steps. The G7 should immobilize Russian assets until Russia agrees to compensate for the damages of the occupation to keep the initiative alive. However, the initiative faces legal and economic challenges, particularly within the European Union. EU leaders, including Christine Lagarde, President of the European Central Bank, have expressed concerns about the potential impact on the financial system. Instead of outright confiscation, some EU countries have decided to use the profits from these frozen assets. It is considering using it to support Ukraine. In contrast, the U.S. has no direct use of frozen Russian assets on behalf of Ukraine. Step was a rather bold example. The U.S. Congress's action was taken not only for its immediate fiscal impact, but also for its international. It is also important for its broader impact on law and economic diplomacy. By seizing Russian assets, the United States can ensure accountability and counter aggression, leverages its economic power to uphold international norms. This is in line with the principles of restorative justice and requires the aggressor to pay for the damages caused. Experts have made it clear that this strategy will have